welcome to my next guest bartender is. This one is really exciting for me. It is always a pleasure when I speak to people in the industry who have had a great career, have got a lot going on for them, and I choose my words very carefully, but this time I'm being completely honest when it is an absolute pleasure to introduce someone who has bartended, who owns their own bar, who owns their own gin, who owns a little bit of a hotel. Please give a warm round of applause, Mr. Jake Berger. How you doing, mate? You all right? Good to see you too. I mean, that's a lot of things on your CV, right?
Yeah,
there's a lot going on
many
there.
different hats over the years, but there's been a kind of a continuity to it. I think it's.
And it all started up in Leeds on your 18th birthday, the day after your 18th birthday.
Well, that's when I started bartending. Yeah, but there was 3 years in the kitchen before that, so I guess my industry career really started age 15.
Oh gosh.
Washing up
and
in Ike's Bistro.
And that just continued and blossomed since then.
I remember that Ike's had a cocktail bar at the front. They're the only cocktail bar in Leeds. Kitchen at the back, and the wash up was behind the kitchen. But there was an alleyway that connected the wash up to the bar, and quite often cocktail glasses and glassware would find their way back there. So I would take them back at age 15. The bar seemed like the most magnificent place, and the kitchen and the wash-up seemed terrible. So as soon as I turned 18, I was like, Ben, who was the then bar manager, Ben Reese, I was like, please, let me make the switch.
So this love affair with the bar industry must have started, or at least you've seen kind of what's going on before the age of 18, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to pinpoint where it all came from. I think actually I did, for me, this only occurred to me relatively recently, really, but when I was doing my GCSEs, one of our modules was Prohibition-era America.
Right.
And we covered the speakeasies and Al Capone and the smuggling routes and that kind of stuff. And really that was really fascinating to me. And perhaps, even then, age 14, 15, that was perhaps where the seed was laid.
So you started working at Townhouse, which was owned by Jed.
No, not quite.
No?
So from Ike's, I graduated to a brief flirtation with the world of fine dining, a restaurant called Guella's, where I blagged a job as the sommelier, even though I knew very little about wine. Got away with that for about 8 months, during which time, remarkably, we won a Michelin star, which is unheard of in terms of that.
For the wine list as well?
But I can't take credit for that, no. Probably due to the quality of the cuisine, I would say. And from there, left and ran a kind of a coffee shop bar called Indie Joe's, which was just a den of iniquity and debauchery. It was fun times.
As late 90s bars were.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We were not the best behaved staff, but we certainly had a good time doing it. And then Townhouse came along, I think, about 98, 99. So by that point, I would have been, 24, 25 years old. Three floors, owned by a guy called Chris Barton and run by a good friend of mine called Stephen Hawkins, who I'd previously worked with at Indie Joe's. And one of those concepts was a cocktail bar, a dedicated cocktail bar, which at the time Leeds, had not really embraced that world.
Yeah.
It was really in the early.
Not many places have.
Yeah, it was in the early days of the cocktail renaissance. It was it was before even about the same time that Dick was opening Atlantic. And that kind of thing. And from there, that was kind of about the birth of the new cocktail culture, I suppose. Competitions arrived, and the Class magazine arrived, and things like that, and
this was late 90s, early 2000s.
Exactly, yeah.
And then Jake's Bar came along?
Jake's was 2004, yeah. So
right.
Jed, my, the founder of our company, and still my business partner and main mentor, I guess, to these days, business-wise at least. Jed had a bar at Porto, which he'd had for a number of years, which is doing all right. Next door to Porto, there was a space that had become available, which was the same landlords, and they'd offered him first refusal on it. And by that point, everybody was calling the cocktail bar at Townhouse Jake's Bar anyway, because I guess I'd become synonymous with the place. So Jed came to me and said, everyone calls this Jake's Bar, why don't we open an actual Jake's Bar? And I was like, well, my ego got the better of me. Who doesn't want to see their name in lights?
So how important was Jed as an influence in terms of the business and so on? Because you were clearly front of house, right?
Yeah.
And Jed was back of house in operations.
I mean, Jed, for me, Jed's been a huge influence in my life in terms of the opportunities that he's afforded me, and he's really the business genius behind a lot of what we do. And we get more on the creative side of things, and the front of house things, and the public face of things. So between us, we make a pretty good team.
And what made you decide to come to London? I mean, maybe the first thought would have been go to either Manchester or Liverpool.
Geographically,
it would have
probably
made
been easier to do. Sheffield, or something like that. By that point we had 3 bars in Leeds, and we didn't want all our eggs in one basket.
Of course.
So we were looking to diversify our interest there, and really the two places that came up were Leeds and Brighton, which were the 2 places we considered. I don't even really remember the thinking behind why we chose those. I'd always fancied coming to work in London. Jed's originally from London. So the idea of coming here appealed to me, and I suppose by that point I'd kind of made a bit of a name for myself on the competition circuit. So and I'd also made a lot of friends through that, and through coming to bar shows and going on the brand trips and what have you. So I had plenty of friends down here, but we had really no idea what we were doing, which area we should settle in, where we should open. And we looked at a couple of sites and actually got quite advanced along in terms of the negotiations, which looking back would have been disastrous. But
so where else were you looking for?
We very nearly did a place which used to be called Low Life, which was kind of not far from not far from kind of Madame Tussauds, that kind of area.
Okay.
There, but
Marylebone, Baker Street, something like that. Okay.
We spoke to the chap who we nearly bought it off. I spoke to him many years later, and he was like, "I didn't know you then." He's like, "I'm so glad you didn't take it. It would have been awful."
Yeah. So that brings. How old were you then? You must have been what, late 20s?
When I moved to London,
yeah,
that would have been 2008. So I would have been what, 33, 34.
Right. Okay. And then Ginstitute took off from.
So originally we settled on the Star in the end.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you, the main reason why we chose the Star was because I love Trail Happiness, and it was 2 doors up, and we were like, well, the trail is brilliant. So if we're in the same neighbourhood, then how far wrong can we go? I remember when we bought it, the Star was kind of a place with a long history and a very some great characters used to be in there, but it was perhaps a little bit of a troubled operation. It certainly wasn't a money-making operation. And when we bought, actually, I called my dear departed friend Henry Besson, who of course has long lived in and worked in the neighbourhood, and said, "Oh, we've bought a bar in your manor." And he's like, "Where?" And I said, "The Star." And he's going, "You've done what?"
Did he offer any advice?
No, he was like, "You've messed up."
Oh, okay.
But it was that kind of environment where I guess the people that drank in there almost felt an ownership of the place.
Yeah.
And when we moved in, they were like, what are you going to do to our pub? And we tried at first to kind of do a little slow gentrification, but we realised after about a year of running it and closing down, for fights half the time and what have you, that really and looking at the place wasn't like we taken over a beautiful old pub with wonderful old fixtures. The place was really falling to pieces. So we realised eventually that we needed to do something a bit more drastic. And
when we took over this place, it used to be an old Chinese restaurant, and I'm pretty sure there was a gambling den upstairs. We spoke to the doorman who used to work at the bar across the road, and they said, "Yeah, anything from midnight to 3-4 in the morning, suited and booted Chinese businessmen would rock up with duffel bags and sometimes leave in tears." And then when we refurbished, every so often we found we were just pulling up floorboards or pulling back some rock wall or something, and we'd find casino chips and like lucky like little lucky emblems and things like that. It's like, this actually was probably a really dodgy Chinese casino. But
never tempted to reopen it.
Always. I'd love to have a casino, but Hackney has this blanket rule of no casino. So to be honest, I'm pretty sure it wasn't legal anyway. So
I would have thought not.
So then we closed the Star, but opened up.
Up at the Star, what would have been 2007. I lived upstairs in the flat for about 3 years,
Rent-free.
which was great fun.
Yeah.
And great, moving to London, getting a free flat
Yeah.
on Portobello Road. But it wasn't the nicest flat. And it's
But
not
also, if someone calls in sick, right?
exactly, it's not the best for your if your mental or physical well-being, really. So eventually, when I moved out, we were looking for something to do with that space, and it was really, an idea that evolved. I suggested that, we're there on Portobello Road with, I think, 100,000 tourists every Saturday, but not much for them to do apart from shop for dubiously priced antiques. And we thought that a museum might be a fun thing to do. And if you're going to tell the story of any alcohol in London, gin is really the tale to tell. And that's where we came with the idea for a museum. And then Jed said, well, can we actually get people to make their own gin? I was like, maybe, I don't know. Look into it, and we evolved that idea. And from there, that's where Portobello Road came along as well. So from one small idea of what to do with the spare room, it really evolved into three things: the museum, the Ginstitute, and the brand itself. So.
And the licensing laws must be slightly different for distilling, because you don't. Do you actually do?
We're not
distilling?
creating alcohol now, so we have rectifiers license and
Right.
compounders license. So we buy in neutral alcohol and redistill it. But you do need 2 licenses for that. And I'll be honest, back then, it was the early days of craft distilling. Nobody had a clue what, it took us about 3 months to get the right forms. Every time we called HMRC, they were like, yeah, fill this one in. And that was the wrong one. Because, back then,
Yeah,
it
no
was
one knows
only,
what's
it was
going
only
on.
a year and a half after Sipsmith had opened, and they were the first in London in several decades.
I was going to say, since the 70s or something.
They say
like
200 years, I'm not sure if that's right.
Yeah, well,
But certainly a long time.
it's a nice piece of history.
For us, we were kind of, I guess, not the original pioneers, but certainly in the pioneer kind of team. We were at the forefront of that, and it was actually, once you got the right form, we found it surprisingly easy to get the licenses.
£80 down the post office, and then
Exactly.
you get it rubber stamped. Brilliant. So then the hotel opened up.
So that was the Ginstitute on its old site,
Right.
above the Star, which we ran for about 4 years and became 4 or 5 years, I guess. Became a huge success. Far outstripped our ideas. And when we launched, there was nothing else like it, really. Really, the business model for the Ginstitute was actually inspired by the guys, the butchers, the Ginger Pig.
Yeah.
They used to do those butchery courses.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
got to learn how to carve up a pig, and
Which is great. Have you been on those?
I've never done it, but it costs, I think, like 120 quid,
Yeah.
but you leave with 120 pounds worth of meat. Is
Well,
the idea
yeah.
behind it. And that was kind of the business model for the Ginstitute. We thought, instead of learning how to cut a pig, you learn how to make gin, and then you
Yeah.
leave with 2 bottles of gin and a belly full of cocktails along the way as well. And we thought, if we did 1 class a week and 25 people a week, then that was going to be a success. After 3-4 years of this, we were doing 100 people a week, and the waiting list to get in was about 9 months, and that was really what enabled us to. The lease on the Star was about to expire anyway, and we noticed that 186 Portobello, just along the road, was available. Beautiful building, and we needed to expand just to accommodate the guests that were lining up for the Ginstitute.
Yeah.
So
And it made sense, right?
when the opportunity came along, we thought, well, we'll go for it. And incredibly fortunate, really, in terms of the timing of it. But also, we were, to an extent, we were really doing this as a bit of an exercise in terms of trying to land a property of that size. When we found out who we were up against, we were like,
Can you say who you're up against?
I probably shouldn't say, but significantly larger multiple operators than us.
So what we tend to do is like a little bit of a Q&A once the camera's turned off, so you can say it. That's no problem. And that's going really well now.
So we did open that 18 months ago. Ginstitute now does upwards of about 250 people a week. We've got the 3 hotel rooms, awesome. which are booked pretty solid. The bar, the restaurant, the shop as well. So it's your one-stop shop, and it was by far the biggest opening I've ever done. And I suppose it took us a little while to get there in terms of the management structure and just getting the procedures in place. Really, it was a bold new world for us. But we're getting we're just about there now. I'd say.
And like you say, it's never been done before. So there is no operating playbook to this is how you open a gin hotel.
I walked past. We host these dinners up in the private dining room now, which are great fun. I'll tell you a lot more about those later on. And they finish about 11 o'clock usually. And I walked through the building and saw. The restaurant nice and busy, the bar busy, the Ginstitute guests all finishing up, knew the hotel was full and the shop was just dusting over the day. And I was like, finally, after 18 months, it feels like each kind of individual section is finally kind of popping and working like they needed to. So.
And then I just saw last week, Navy Strength has just been launched.
Navy
and
Strength,
the
right
cans,
here, hot off the press. So, the cans. Cans are about, I guess we launched cans in April, so 2-3 months ago now. We launched them about 4 days before the heat wave started, which was very fortunate timing.
Yeah.
And I was a little unsure about the RTD. I'll be honest. I wasn't sure if it really. We don't consider ourselves super premium, fancy bottle. We don't position ourselves like that. We want to be good gin at a good price and affordable and drunk by people that enjoy good gin. And there wasn't really anybody in the RTD category who had really done that. Most of them were kind of perhaps slightly lower down the pricing structure, or were supermarket brands. But we thought, why not? And I put it out on social media, and the reaction was overwhelmingly positive. And shortly after we put it out, the Evening Standard said the best bit of PR we could ever hope for. About a week after we launched, they were like, "We test the top 10 gins in a tin, and the Portobello Road one wins by a mile," or something like that.
Because there must be a certain amount of baggage, if you like, that comes with an RTD. That big brands, if they do a rum and pineapple juice or a American whiskey and cola, without saying the brands, I'm
yes.
pretty sure you in a can, that kind of category has a certain level, and just going above that is must have been something quite difficult to come up with straight away.
Yeah, and I think it was even 2 years ago I would have been probably more nervous about it now, but it's become, I think it's the gin tin, as they colloquially get called these days, has very quickly kind of embedded itself in the British psyche. It has become a huge part of the British summer, and for us as well, outside of the obvious kind of Friday afternoons in the park and train journeys home and picnics, it was a real opportunity to get into the festival market as well.
Of course,
where, of course, you can't take bottles in.
Of course,
and perhaps get the brand in front of a younger kind of hipper clientele, and I think we did a great job on the packaging as well. So
it does look good. It looks really cool.
For want of a better word, it's quite Instagrammable.
Which is so important now,
but
right?
It really is. Yeah.
The last 2 years, if it doesn't look good, it's not going to sell. So we first met a while ago on a brand trip. I don't know if you remember this.
Maker's Mark.
Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
We went to
horse racing.
We did. We went to. Yeah, that was
amongst other things.
That was. I lost a lot of money that day. But we met in Kentucky, and I remember the first time I met you. We were talking about Pac-Man, because there was a Pac-Man machine in the corner. Dive bars, and I remember you had. I think you coloured it in yourself. You put there was people from all over the world on this trip. There were people from America and Melbourne and Sydney, and you put a sticker on your shirt that said, "Hello, my name is Jake." And I just remember this guy's got a bit of personality. But that brand trip especially taught me about your love of dive bars, because I think you searched out every single horrendous bar in Kentucky and purposely made a point of going there. What is it about dive bars? Where does your love affair with dive bars come from?
For me, it's the dive bar in America fulfills the same social function as the pub does in England. Every American tourist who wants to come to England wants to go to a traditional English pub, right? For me, it's the same in America. And I think you really, you don't get to know a city by visiting, its top 10 award-winning cocktail bars, which have all been open for 5 years and probably will be closed down in 5 years. You get to know the underbelly of a city by visiting the dodgy hellholes which have been there for 50 years and are full of the real characters who've lived there their whole life.
It's a risky strategy, though.
Yeah, quite dangerous sometimes.
Yeah. Do you have a favourite dive bar?
I mean,
anywhere in the States?
Probably my three favourites are probably all in New Orleans. Yeah. So the Alibi, obviously, but that almost for me, it's not really a dive anymore. It's kind of just my home from home over there.
It's one of those that everyone seems to head to from midnight.
You've been drinking a bar too long when the bartender invites you to their wedding.
So,
outside of that, I got the two I love there, Jake and Snake's Christmas Lounge.
Right. Where's that?
Which that's in New Orleans as well. Which was once upon a time just called Snakes and was owned by a guy called Snake, who then bought a cat called Jake, which was such a well-loved cat that he incorporated the cat into the name.
Right.
And then after a power cut, I believe they decorated it with Christmas lights and then left it at that. And a few years later, it became the Christmas Lounge. So it was a name that evolved, and that place is about as dive as it gets. You can barely see your hand in front of your face. You walk in there. The
And then what? They still
the
have
house
all the
drink's
lights
got a
on?
possum drop, which celebrates the event when a possum fell through the ceiling and landed on the bartender's head, and they were like, "It's a sign." And it
Right.
consists of a glass of Jägermeister depth charged into a glass of Schlitz beer. It's pretty bad. That's the house drink. And girls drink for free on a Sunday if they're topless. You know, it's like
Oh,
and
brilliant.
there's a guy drink,
But only if it's
and there's a guy who drinks there for free because he got shot there.
I mean, if you're going to get shot somewhere, then at least you're going to get something out of it, right?
So, you know, that one is great. The other one I love in New Orleans is the Brothers 3 Lounge, run by a marvellous chap called Callooh Callay, who is exactly as all dive bar bartenders should be, and has seemingly been there forever. And Charlie's catchphrase is, "I'm not happy till you're not happy."
Oh, it sounds like a number of people I know in the industry. So, I mean, it kind of leads quite nicely to the next topic that I wanted to talk to you about, tails, which is just around the corner. Any favourite categories, anything that you're particularly looking forward to seeing this year? Are you heading out there?
I'm going, yeah, I'll be
Because
flying out there.
presumably, I see every year you do a dive bar crawl.
We do the dive bar crawl on the Sunday, myself and my partner in crime in that respect, Lyndon Higginson. Live and Let Dive. This will be, I think, the 7th year we've done it, which is, you know, always good fun. One of my highlights. I always look forward to the bowling there as well. You know, we have the Spirit of the Bowl, which I think this will be my 5th year as captain of the London team.
Right.
We've won once.
Oh, really?
We usually
Which year
lose.
was that?
We won 2016, yeah. In dramatic circumstances.
What happened?
There was some dispute about the points for the Miami team. In fact, I'd seen that final score, which was lower than ours, and then when the numbers got chalked up, they miraculously acquired some points, and after a steward's inquiry and a few heated words between myself and my recently departed friend John LeMayer, we decided on a bowl-off, but not a full team bowl-off or even a full game bowl-off. One ball each for me and John, and I lost the toss and got put in first. And you know when it leaves your hand and you know it's a sweet one, and it was going fast and straight down the middle.
And it kills.
I bowled a 9. No, it was straight down the middle.
Right.
I got a 9. So John had to strike to win.
To win.
And I'm glad to say he didn't. He choked.
Fantastic.
My greatest sporting hour probably.
So any particular awards that you're looking out for?
At the Spirited Awards.
Will you be going, or is it just the whole Tales?
I feel like I should go this year. For me, I understand why they're so long, because there are so many categories to get through. And but for me, sometimes it's been a little interminably long in the past. And I actually skipped it the last couple of years. And I did just notice that the Hot 8 brass band are playing at DBA on the Saturday night, scheduled directly against the awards. So I'm tempted to skip again this year.
And go to there. Fair enough.
We always had a plan to do a rival. You know, we always used to do the alternative bar awards, myself.
I was going to get to
Paul
that.
Mann and Tim Stones, and we of course killed that a little while ago. But there's been whispered talks over the years to revive it and hold it in the Alibi at the exact same time as the actual awards.
Presumably the awards would be slightly different to the.
My idea was that we give the awards to the same people, but we changed what the categories were.
Okay. Why would that be?
So instead of winning like the world's best cocktail menu, you get the
I see.
Shut Up and Make Me a Fucking Negroni award or something like that. You know. So.
I can imagine the best person to present that as well would be someone who used to work here. But the alternative bar awards, they were very popular, and you killed it when, 2 years ago?
It started as a joke in about 2010,
which was off the back of the class awards, right? Was it class or theme? I can't remember.
It was really at that point when we felt like the industry perhaps was in danger of losing its footing on the ground, should we say. There were a few inflated egos and a few too many people believing their own PR campaigns.
And it's a good job that that's no longer the case, right? Surely
that's
there's
why
no
we
one
killed it, because we completely failed to control that. I think it's just got worse and worse. But it really started. We thought it would be a one-off fun time thing. 2010, it was me stood on a crate with a bullhorn in the middle of the Portobello Star. We probably had about 40 people came down. It was really great fun. But we decided to do another year. And next year, about 100 people came down. And by the time we killed it, we had 250 people turn up for a bar which officially holds 80.
Yeah. But that's kind of how Tales started in the first place, right? There was a couple of people, meeting around a table, offering best bars in New Orleans and then best bars in the States, and then all of a sudden it became a bit of a global phenomenon.
And then there was, with the class awards and the theme awards and numerous other ones which have come and gone since then, a lot of it always was starting to feel a bit too much like a giant circle jerk, and everybody started going, "You're the best." No, you're the best. You're the best. So we wanted to reward the thing that bartenders really care about. I think the first year there was only a handful of categories. It was like, which bar had the worst toilets, which I think you guys were.
We were up for, I can't remember when that was.
I think you lost out to Mahiki, which won the prize for just for the entire place. Being the Mahiki Club was the world's worst toilet,
which I'm sure went down really well.
I'm sure it's wonderful now. And we had, the other things that bartenders always talk about, like who was the hottest brand ambassador, and those
which
kind of
something
things.
you're clearly not going to do again.
Well, I think we probably killed it in 2016, I think. And I look back now at some of the things. I need to tread carefully here, because of course, the new age we live in, which if you want to put a hashtag on it, the Me Too age, I guess, and the age of us perhaps being a little more guarded and careful about what we say in many respects. The Alternative Bar Awards didn't fit very comfortably into that world. When I look back at some of the jokes, it was always done lightheartedly and with good intentions, and we never meant to upset anybody, and hopefully we rarely did. But when I look back at some of the things that people are getting, in fairly big trouble for these days, I'm like, glad it wasn't videoed, shall we say?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's only hearsay now, right? There's no proof. So, but you mentioned standing on a soapbox with your megaphone. That sounds very familiar to Rematch, which
part of the Alternative Bar Awards originally was myself, Paul Mann and Tim Stones, who are both now in Australia, and the late Henry Besson, and of course Rematch was Paul and Tim, so I suppose they occupied. It
kind of works quite nicely. Did you ever compete in?
I did it once, when it was at Love's Company. I was hopeless. I realised that my round was not going well when I turned the pina colada blender on without the lid on.
That's almost a cliche moment on TV where everything just goes up and over the judges.
And I decided at that point not to do it. I mean, I kind of knew really. I was like, Paul made me do it. I was like, I'm basically just giving you £50.
I stopped doing competitions pretty much as soon as I opened up here, and there was no way that I was ever a good enough bartender to compete in that.
The Rematch was fun in its heyday. I thought it was great, and I judged it many times. And the camaraderie, the spirit, the effort people put into it was great. But I think it kind of went a bit too far. I think it's almost time that got killed as well. Me and Paul did talk about killing Rematch Biatch in a drive-by shooting on Portobello Road.
But you know what? It's become a global
phenomenon,
brand, if you like. Where people are prepared to stump up their own money to fly all over the world to compete in.
I mean, it's wonderful how widespread it's become, and it's taken on a life of its own, much to Paul and Tim's dismay, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But for me, it's so fascinating. The first time I judged, I think the time was like 7 minutes. I think the world recognised like 2.5 minutes or something like that. It's insane. I mean,
is that still Bobby, or is that?
I think it's still Bobby. Yeah. How much faster can it get? I don't know.
So, was that the last competition you ever entered?
What was the last? I think the last competition I retired a number of times, and I always said my price to come out of retirement was $10,000, and then Domaine de Canton did one about 5 years ago, which was a $10,000 cash prize. So I entered that, came second in the UK heat. So that was I think that was the last time I competed. But over the years, I did pretty well over the years.
Well, I was going to say there must have been. You must have seen a lot of changes happen from the first cocktail competitions you were in.
I kind of think,
because judging now, surely you're judging some pretty decent competitions.
I think it's it's a different world now. I was fortunate, I suppose, I was at the right time when I got a bit of the low-hanging fruit, I guess. So back then, turning up with a vintage glass or some red currants, or measuring your
goji juice,
measuring your egg whites into little silver jugs, that kind of stuff. That was groundbreaking stuff back then, and that was enough to.
But now every bar in
does that all day, every day. Yeah.
Right. So should we taste some gin?
Let's do it.
Great. Okay.
So the first thing I brought along, which is you know, this is the last of the last. It's not even in the right bottle. That's how little that we have
So
left.
that's the last one you've got?
Yeah, but well,
Okay.
I've got the bottle number 1 in the museum, and I've got a bottle tucked away at home, which I'll keep for all time. But yeah, that's about as much left as we've got. And this was our Director's Cut number 3. So Director's Cut gins are when we get a chance to flex our creative muscles a little bit more. So, you know, Portobello, of course, is a London Dry gin, which the regulations around London Dry are great in that they preserve the integrity of the category, but they are perhaps a little kind of restrictive in terms of kind of stifling innovation, creativity. So we get a bit more carried away with our Director's Cut gins, and each year one of the company directors is involved in the harvesting of the gin, of the botanical, sorry.
So Director's Cut isn't a London Dry?
Sometimes it is, but this one is not. So the first one, Paul, went down to Cambridge and harvested the last of the late season English asparagus, and we did the world's first asparagus gin. That one was a London Dry. Very pungent, yeah, before you ask. No, it doesn't.
Right, just checking.
The second one, Jed went over to Ireland, dug some peat, and we used the peat to smoke the botanicals, did a very smoky gin, which we distilled on the anniversary of the Great Fire of London. Great on a snapper, really great kind of barbecue qualities to it. And then this year it was my turn, so, you know, Paul went to Cambridge, Jed went to Ireland, I went to Grenada and picked nutmegs.
Of course.
And we did a very festive gin. But perhaps the more interesting side of the story is really the technique we used. And we're very fortunate in the modern era, how from yourself included, I'm sure, get to visit various different distilleries and production facilities around the world. And I'm very into the idea of kind of cross-pollination between categories. So we borrowed an idea from our friends down in Mexico and did the world's first Pechuga gin. So we threw a party down at the distillery, put a batch of Portobello back in the still, put a mariachi band in the corner, and got all our friends involved, chopping up apples, pears, putting cinnamon, nutmeg, brown rice, pineapple, all kinds of other things, 13 additional ingredients into the still, and then put this 2.5 kilo turkey breast in the neck of the still. And then that was never in contact with the liquid alcohol, only with the vapor alcohol during distillation. It kind of slowly cooks it, but it also affects the liquid as well. It kind of actually acts as a bit of a sponge. It soaks up some of the more intense citrus flavours, but also, and don't ask me the science behind it, but to me, it feels like it really kind of improves the mouthfeel. It gives you a viscosity, a creaminess, a thickness. So, you know, it doesn't taste of turkey. When we launched, despite our best attempts with the press release, you know, a number of newspapers ran with Portobello Road makes turkey flavoured gin. Like, that's not what it is.
Well, that's perfect for Christmas now, right?
But
I mean, that's
for me,
really
the flavours, the aromas are really festive. Kind of stewed fruits, dried fruits, spice, cinnamon, nutmeg, that kind of stuff.
Right, especially on the initial flavours on the nose. What do you guys think?
And then
Initial flavours?
we did just 1,000 bottles of this. This one sold out in a remarkably quick time, to be honest.
And how does that work? Do you put like samples in the big stores, or just
no? We sell it in the shop at the distillery, or via our own website as well.
Yeah. Whiskey Exchange or anything like that?
No, it's at the moment.
Okay. So literally the only place you can get
direct from us. Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay.
And, you know, we've always said if any of these really get some traction and take off, then that we would consider doing it as a permanent line extension. And actually, the smoky one was hugely popular. We still get a lot of people asking for that.
Yeah.
But
would you do that again?
It was a real pain in the ass to make. We literally, you know, those little smokers that kind of about the size of R2D2. Yeah. There's me and
those big green eggs.
Me and my not even one of those. No, a cheap B&Q one. Me and my friend Derek stood there in Hamersham and Cox's garden for about 14 hours on a rainy day, drinking crappy beer, poking this juniper every kind of half an hour to get the smoke into it. So if we ever did do it again, I would need to find some way a little more efficient to smoke the juniper than doing it all by hand.
Yeah, but then you get a number of people, you know, willing to put their hands up to taste it, right?
Yeah.
So then you've just launched a Navy strength.
Yes.
Right.
So this is, you know, as I said, we did say that we would consider doing permanent line extensions for the brand. None of the director's cuts have become that yet, but this is our first permanent one, hot off the presses. I stuck these labels on myself about 2 days ago.
Dedication.
And, you know, it's the same botanical recipe as Portobello, but there's more of it in there. So we've not just dialed up the alcohol, we've dialed up the botanical content as well. The alcohol is up at 57.1%. You know, the Plymouth Gin, of course, pioneered the Navy category back in the 90s. They set the number at 57. Historically, really, the Navy used to set theirs about 54.5, so they actually probably got the number a bit wrong there. Far be it from me to
But that's not the highest ABV gin going, surely.
No, there's some higher than that.
Yeah, there's quite a few.
But we've always had a friendly rivalry with Plymouth. And They did theirs at 57, so we did ours at 57.1, just as a little kind of.
To see what we have.
And we've also added a tiny amount of sea salt to it as well, so it's not
Okay.
salty, but there's some sea salt, which plays nicely with that kind of. Yeah, there's been a trend in recent years in the cocktail world for a lot of salinity in cocktails, and we think
Well,
that
not
works
just
really
cocktail
well.
world. You know,
Yeah, true enough. Yeah.
In the kitchens and gastropubs, you see a lot of salted caramel and salted
Exactly,
sweet
yeah.
stuff. So,
And we had a bit of fun with the label as well. It's designed by the same guy that did the original label for us 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And at first glance, it looks very similar, but we put lots of details in. So there's the little portholes there.
Yeah, I know.
Some
I
waves,
noticed
the
the captain's
seashell,
wheel as well.
the juniper berries are turning into oars.
Right.
And if you look inside the label there, you can see the famous Portobello Road red lion has been redrawn as a sea serpent, and now has a kind of
I didn't actually see
a
that
fish's
until-
tail on him as well. So we've actually done 6 different neck ribbons as well.
I saw that online. That looked pretty great.
So see what you make of this. What we've generally found so far is that people are astounded that it's as smooth as it is at such a high ABV.
And sometimes I get the feeling when you say, "Can you taste this?" In my mind, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can." And actually, it's a myth. But can you actually smell sea salt?
For me, I think there is a little kind of
there's a little kick
something
of something.
of coastal air about it.
You know, if someone said, "Oh, you know, you can really taste the banana skins," I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, you said banana skins. I can taste banana skins."
I think there is a certain power of suggestion as well. The one which annoys, the one which I've been getting annoyed by of late is people say, I'm guilty of it myself, saying, minerality, but, you know, I don't know how many different minerals they are, but I'm pretty sure they all smell different. So
Yeah. When you read on restaurant menus, like earthy vegetables, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
All
Potatoes
vegetables
or
are
carrots?
Oh. It's got a really clean finish as well.
Yeah, that's what we always wanted to, be consistent with the Portobello Road family. So we've not changed it massively. Still got that nice and long, clean finish, but just a bit more intensity. I think it's 57.1. You'd probably not want too many.
Well, you're not going to smash that back.
Too many martinis with it, but
that's
taller drinks and highballs and things. I think it's going to,
because it feels. You get less intensity on the nose, but you get so much more on your tongue, and then it's got a really crisp, clean finish.
I've just been drinking it in gin and tonics, and it just goes that little bit further, lasts that little bit longer. I think it works really well.
Yeah.
So we will see how. And we've done it in a slightly smaller bottle, so it's in the 500 bottle rather than 700, but we're selling it at the exact same price. So it'll be available side by side, same retail price, but obviously slightly less.
Great. Right, well I think that pretty much wraps up our chat. We'll obviously have a bit of a Q&A afterwards if you guys want to ask any bit more intrusive questions than I've asked. But it is genuinely an absolute pleasure to speak to you here. And enjoy Tales. I will see you out there.
I will see you there.
And
thank you for inviting me over. I've always been a huge fan of Callooh Callay. So
thank you very much.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. So that's pretty much wraps it up. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we will see you again very soon.